Call the
Looking into
March 25th special council meeting to order at 5:30. And we'll say that we have regrets for various reasons, sickness, travel, and from three councillors, but we have quorum, so we have a meeting. And there will be public input, I think, tonight. I'm going to guess some people may wish to speak. I'm not sure. If you do, I think the presentation is going to be coming along in sort of 4 decision points, and you'll recognize if this is one that you want to speak to, you can speak to it. So you would I'll ask if there's anybody wishes to speak. You'll come up to the microphones, press the little button there to get the orange circle, state your name, and off you go. If you do represent a group or an agency, you're a legal representative by charter or whatever, state that you're speaking on behalf of a group. If not, you're just speaking on behalf of yourself. So we've been through a bit of a process with the bylaw. It started in CAO. This is sort of a conglomeration of 10, 20, 30-year-old bylaws that the staff doing their job decided it's time to review these and bring them up to date. And it's some of these, they build up. That's quite, you can see from the documents if you've looked at them, it's a lot of work to go through this. So thank you for doing this. It needs to be done. It is a process, and it's sort of iterative. We came to council and it went the public has provided input. I think sufficient time was given. I think it was about a 4-week period. And staff have reacted to that and now are presenting back to council the revised proposed bylaw. So what I'll do tonight is I'll read the bylaw and get a mover and a seconder to put it on the table. The resolution, CAO, is that correct? And then the discussion, the presentation and discussion will start. So having said that, I'll ask, are there any amendments to the agenda?
Through Mayor Lawrence, I have none.
So a motion that the agenda for the special council meeting on March 25th be approved as presented. Moved by Councillor Timpson, seconded by Councillor Vanbreda. All in favor? I don't have to turn my head sideways. Declarations of pecuniary interest.
Through Mayor Lawrence, I have none.
Thank you. So we'll move right into staff report. Bylaw number 01-26, traffic and parking control bylaw. The council gives third and final reading to bylaw number 01-26, being a bylaw to regulate traffic and parking within the municipality of Sioux. And further, the council approves the set fine schedule bylaw number 01-26 as presented at the March 18th, 2026 council meeting. And further, the council authorizes submitting the set fine schedule to bylaw number 01-26 to Ministry of the Attorney General for approval. A mover? Councillor Vanbreda, seconder. Councillor Costco. Floor is yours for presentation.
Through Mayor Lawrence, thank you very much. Just one minor note to the resolution instead of March 18th. 5th council meeting. I apologize for that. Mayor Lawrence, thank you, and good evening, everyone. Tonight's presentation is organized around the decision points that remain after public consultation, including council feedback on the draft traffic and parking control bylaw. We have organized the presentation tonight so that council can focus on the key decisions that need to be made this evening. The more detailed presentation is appended to and part of this presentation, and we can pull items forward from that if council at any time this evening wants a more fulsome issue by issue review of the material. Staff recommends moving package by package. For each package, council can adopt staff's recommendation, amend the package, or pull out a specific item for separate discussion. Staff suggests proceeding in the order shown in the deck, and it'll be formed around accessibility, 2nd Avenue North, downtown port parking, Lakeshore Farlinger, and then consent items and the final approvals. The consent block, as we're calling it, is here to help council deal with items that receive fewer comments. The recommended approach is to leave those items grouped together, again, unless a member of council wishes to pull anything out for a separate discussion. So before we jump to the first package, we just want to summarize a few things with relation to overview, corrections, and overall concerns. So there were 31 written submissions received on 17 provisions during the consultation period. The revised bylaw before council this evening incorporates comments from the OPP, the municipality's insurer, the municipality's lawyer, and a preliminary review of the set findings by the Ministry of the Attorney General. This draft identifies corrections in yellow and revisions or new provisions in blue in the copy of the bylaw that council has. Overall, the recurring themes were accessibility, safety, winter operations, snow clearing, enforceability, and the need to balance turnover with practical parking access in different parts of the municipality. So with that broader context in mind, we'll get into the packages. So this decision one, so these are the packages essentially, and decision one. This doesn't seem to be advancing. There we go. On my slide. Again, these are the packages. These are the formal approvals that we'll have this evening. So accessibility, Second Ave downtown, Lakeshore Farlinger, and the consent block. So stepping down to decision one. So the recommendations are from staff include adding one official accessible parking space at 66 Front Street, retain the existing accessible space at 60 Front Street and 4th Avenue, former Northern Store, add one official accessible space between 88 and 88.5 Front Street, and retain the east side of 5th Avenue as a fire route, no parking edge. The public feedback emphasized concern about losing parking near the Sioux Area Seniors Activity Center. And there was also some confusion between what is provided for in the existing bylaw and what is actually signed on the ground. So we wanted to provide some clarification around that. And we can get into those details if council wishes. But these are the recommended revisions essentially with respect to the accessibility package, if you will. Any
Council,
Yes.
council comments, questions? Okay, I'll start at one end and go to the other, then I'll flip around next time. Council Brown.
I guess my question is for Chief Funk. For the 5th Avenue for the fire trucks, how many fire trucks go down this avenue in a given year? So would we be able to maybe add a temporary parking spot, maybe in the corner of 5th and Front by the Sioux Area's Senior Activity Center?
Sorry, Mary.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, can speak to the fire response. We have those numbers. Using 2025 as an example, we had 166 calls for service. Of those, 81 calls involved fire trucks traveling down this corridor, or approximately 48.80%. The corridor from the fire hall to King Street and to Front Street is the sole access for fire trucks responding to incidents on any of our area highways. 72, 516, 642. We have to get out of town. We don't really have an option of going through side streets as fire trucks don't corner terribly well. So we try to take the most direct route to provide the speediest response when needed. That's not a total number of fire trucks because many of these calls would have multiple trucks responding to incidents, and we only flag. I could get you that information if so directed. As far as a temporary parking space on the side, Mary, did we not talk about a temporary loading and unloading zone? Not as much a parking spot along there. Correct me if I'm wrong.
We, through you, Mayor Lawrence, we did talk about that. There is one supposed to be existing, but it's farther up from the corner. It almost reaches the back lane would be the loading zone and bus loading zone. It was a combined spot years ago. It would have to be back from the corner though, definitely.
So
Could a, when you say a loading zone, could a vehicle come up, park and let somebody off or get somebody out, close the door and leave? Would that be, that's not considered, would that be considered parking or is that,
I,
you or me?
I don't know. Through you, Mayor Lawrence, there is a distinction between parking, stopping and standing. Parking still allows you to, if it says no parking, it still means you can pull up, load a passenger, unload a passenger or goods. No standing allows you to unload and load people, but not goods, services. No stopping means no stopping, can't park, can't stand, just nothing.
So the no parking allows for some standing and some, both the standing and the loading or.
Yes, through you, Mayor Lawrence, the no parking is the least restrictive.
Yeah.
Remember it? Okay.
Yeah, I like that idea of maybe putting a temporary loading zone on that corner there, just so it's not impeding fire trucks. Because let's say there's a truck parked in that corner, would you still be able to use the fire truck to get around it and maybe turn left or turn right onto Front Street? If the sirens are going and the lights are on?
through you, Mayor Lawrence, it really depends on how the public respond and how that truck is positioned on that given day. The near misses that we've had, and we have 3 recorded in 2025 in this travel corridor, where vehicles either turned off of Front Street onto responding apparatus on 5th, or came down the King Street, the other area identified in the fire lane route, were all results of just regular interactions with people who had nowhere to go due to parked vehicles along that eastern side of Fifth Avenue. So I would like to, just while I have the microphone, this not only affects the fire response, larger transport vehicles that move up and down Fifth Avenue face the same impactions from parked vehicles as they're trying to negotiate through our roadways. As early as today, I watched a 53-foot trailer coming from Public Works try to get back onto King Street and have to wait until all traffic was cleared to make the turn because there's just not enough room when vehicles are parked in these identified areas.
Yeah. Councillor Timpson.
Yeah, a couple of clarifications. So I thought I read in here that the accessible parking on 4th, right across from CIBC, was to be maintained. Is that correct? I don't see it up there. It's right here. It's on the map. Okay, yeah, because it wasn't on your slide there, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's included.
I have to say, I am glad to see increased numbers of handicap parking. I would add, though, that we have to keep thinking about, there's lots of people who need better accessibility who don't have or don't need the blue sign. I mean, accessibility it just doesn't apply to somebody who has received the medical sign. Anyway, I'll get to that later. On that, so one space in front of 87 Queen Street North at St. Andrew's Church, but 87 is on the south. So which side were you looking at there?
You're looking at St. Andrew's Church
Page 3,
for an accessible spot. Is that what you're?
the very bottom.
Yeah.
Is
Queen and 6. Yeah.
yeah,
I don't see it.
yeah. Here it says
Right
right
here.
here.
Yeah.
I know,
Yeah.
but it says 87 Queen Street North, but 87 Queen Street is on the south side of Queen Street.
Sorry, through Mayor Lawrence, When we refer to north and south, this is a delineation that the telephone company has to require, and it means north or south of the tracks. Because certain streets are both north and south, some of the avenues, some of the streets.
Okay,
So when we say Queen Street North, we're referring to the street, not to the direction of where.
okay. Oh, okay. I thought that meant that the side of the street. So, okay, so that's just, that's an extra spot on Queen Street then, correct? It's a new spot. Is that right? It's a new spot?
It's
87
so
Queen?
you're looking at page 3 of the schedule.
Yeah, 87 Queen is a new accessible spot, is it?
United Church.
The United Church.
I don't see,
Page 3. Oh. Very bottom?
one space in front of 87 Queen Street. Yes, St. Andrew's Church.
That's a new one? That's a new spot, is it?
The address is Queen Street, but St. Andrew's Church address Queen Street.
Oh, I see.
The acceptable spot is on
Spot
Sixth
is,
Avenue,
right.
into the church, but on Sixth.
Oh, okay. Yeah, all right. Okay.
You almost have to look at the map.
Okay, that's a bit confusing. It might be. Yes.
Councilor Thompson?
Yeah, that's it for other questions. I don't think.
Now, when we look at the map, it's hard for us to tell which ones have been added and which ones existed before. So with the senior center, so between the post office and the CIBC, we now have one at the post office and two at the seniors and one in the middle of the street. Is that correct? And so how many are there?
Everything that is in, that has the pink border is new.
It's new, okay. Now, except for the one that used to be in the CIBC, that is not new. So that's what confused me.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, the other question that a citizen brought up is that in front of Charlie's, they are loading all the time. So they are interfering with the seniors parking. Now, is there any way we can give them a proper loading zone in front of their own building? So they're not interfering with seniors parking?
I would need to understand what you mean by saying, there's accessible parking which is available to anybody.
Yes,
There is no dedicated seniors parking on Front Street.
but if these park spots are all taken up by truck loading in regular time, do they not have a proper loading zone if they're unloading every day?
I was not aware of that. That hasn't been brought forward as a concern by anyone.
Okay, so I think that is a concern, and I think that they require, because I've even gone to town where they're.
So if we put a loading zone in,
Yeah,
that's going to prohibit other types of parking for all the rest of the day.
So
So that would actually restrict parking further for the seniors.
but then they would be down the street a little bit more.
Who would be down the street?
The truck that's loading, it would be where in front of Charlie.
We're really trying to get away from having,
Loading zones?
well, dedicated parking for any particular business or organization. That's not a good practice. We don't do that for any other business or organization in town. And I would be not inclined to want to introduce
So
that.
businesses don't have like loading zones, proper loading zones in the back?
We have created loading zones in certain areas on Front Street where
The
where
parking.
it was identified was a need. But there's no dedicated parking for any business on Front Street.
And no loading zone on Front Street for our businesses. to-
Well, there's a loading zone in front of the Centennial Center.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think that's the only one we have on Front Street.
Okay.
Councilor Van Buren?
So if we make the loading zone for Charlie's Diner in the senior center at the corner of Fifth and Front.
Well, we have to remember that at a minimum, we need 9 meters from the intersection before anybody can start parking anything.
Okay.
That's a Ontario law, not a municipal law. So it wouldn't be on the corner, it would be 9 meters up.
Okay.
It's a far way to.
Yeah, it's just kind of falling right.
Councilor Thompson?
Yeah, it seems as if you're increasing the number of accessible spots on the north side of Front Street, correct? Between Fourth and Fifth. That means there's less parking for people who can't park in the handicap parking lot. So they're going to be on the other side. And this takes me to the point where not everybody who needs accessibility is parking at the handicap parking. So I had raised the need for a crosswalk at some point between the post office or the senior center, because trying to cross that road in the winter time is really very precarious. With a crosswalk, you would know the person. Whenever I cross in the wintertime, I'm just petrified I'm going to fall and not be able to get up in time for the next car to come. And I really think there needs to be something there so people can cross safely in the wintertime.
So through you, Mayor Lawrence, everywhere there is an intersection, there's understood to be a crosswalk. That's traffic law. So everywhere there is, so at the corner of Fifth, you can walk across Front Street to the opposite cross. There is a crosswalk there. It's just not painted. It's by right. So every intersection has one.
Should you
Does
hate
the
one?
public know that? I wouldn't have known that. I only stop at a crosswalk if I see a yellow sign in the light. So I mean, I don't.
So you're talking about like an actual
An actual.
crosswalk.
Yes.
Signage and, okay.
Over.
That's a crossover, that hadn't been contemplated for this, that would be a considerable expense that council would need to look at. And that's something, if council wishes to direct, that when we created, it's a very difficult area for people to cross because people are coming up the hill from the post office, and it's challenging to stop there. So the other thing that's really important to keep in mind about crosswalks is that they often provide a false sense of safety, and people just start walking before they actually check to see if it's safe to walk. So there can be an argument made that it's actually safer not to put a pedestrian crossover there and require people to actually stop and look and check before they walk out into traffic.
Yeah, I don't buy that. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm saying this based on experience that we've had with the Fifth Avenue and Wellington crosswalk, because people have
Yeah,
on many occasions just pressed the button and started walking without looking at all, and there have been a number of near misses there as a result of that.
but I wonder if there's more those types of accidents than people who, get hit by a car because they can't walk fast enough in the snow to get across. I mean,
First Councillor Costa, then Councillor Husband.
Now, would it be simpler to just add a line at couple of the lines at one intersection? Just as an educational piece, like, is that cost prohibitive or is that?
Well, adding the lines is not cost prohibitive,
Yeah.
but it would have to be provided for in the bylaw if we're putting it in
Yeah.
as a crosswalk.
Yeah.
So there's a crossover and a crosswalk.
Yeah, not a crossover, just
Yeah.
a crosswalk because like Joyce said, I think it's an education piece because people in small towns, like I'm terrible, I do it all the time. You run across in front of traffic. I would constantly do it. I know it's jaywalking and I know people have been fine with jaywalking, but I would constantly jaywalk and I don't walk back down to the intersection. And, but sometimes when it's icy, that's probably, and you have like, when I go uptown with my mother, I do consider, like you said, we don't have a handicap thing, but how do I get her across the street in slippery conditions? And if there was a walk, I would walk back and do that. I do walk back and do that. So it would be a good education piece just to put the lines in, even just in one block. So then people can realize that this is where you're supposed to be walking. Even though it is a small town, we shouldn't be jutting out into traffic.
Councillor Breda and then Councillor Timpson.
I'm in favor of putting a crossover, but I'm not thinking of the one that we have at the corner of Wellington by the Tim Hortons. I'm thinking of the one they have in downtown Kenora. It's just a light that flashes that says vote or yield for pedestrians, like not something that's actually have to sit there and press the button and wait, something just a flashing light that we also should have too. We need to have a light by the roundabout because I've seen people just go right. I think we need like a flashing light that says stop for
That's-
pedestrians. Yeah,
That's planned for this year.
that's planned. Yeah, so maybe since we're putting one there, can we put one maybe at Fifth and Front. Just I would like this, just this, you know, please be cautious. There are people walking, because even like Alameda today, I got coffee at the hub, and there was a truck parked south side of Front Street parked, and there's another big truck parked by the Fifth Avenue. So you have to be on the street to even look both ways before you even cross. By the time, I mean, I'm looking both ways. I'm already in the middle of the street, so I just kind of booked it, but I almost got hit too today. So, which is my fault, but also at the same time, you have to be on the street to even look both ways. So there was like a flashing light that said, you know, you stop for me, kind of thing, right?
Council tips.
Yeah, that's almost exactly what I was thinking, is that you don't need the fancy press the button and all that stuff. They don't work half the time anyways, but you know, when they first had, I didn't know there was a difference between crosswalk and crossover, but when they first had crossovers, you stood there and you pointed and people stopped for you. And it could be as simple as that. And yeah, I think Fifth and Front would be, you know, good halfway between the senior center and the post office, somewhere around there. No, it wouldn't be, it'd be right at the senior center, sorry,
Yeah.
yeah. So I would be fully in favor of
Investigate that. See the-
crossover of some sort.
Electrifying and all that kind of stuff.
And how much would it cost?
And so I guess that's the question. So is council directing this change be made, or that council will investigate the cost?
Can I suggest a two-step process that I'm worrying about Councilor Costco saying she didn't know, you know, by right, an intersection, we have a pedestrian has the right. I think I have the right if the driver's shows the courtesy. I never thought that I had the right. I don't assert that right. But I think the zebra stripes, we can call them that, would be a low-cost way of at a couple of intersections in downtown of indicating to traffic that this is a right.
But they are visible in the winter.
Well, I understand that. I understand. Yeah, I was going to add that. Thanks. If the winter time is a problem, although Front Street can remain fairly clear. But even that low cost sort of education piece for the public. So most of the people, you know, there's always going to be new people in town and whatever. But I'm going to suggest zebra stripes at Fifth and Fourth, I guess. Just a thought, Council. What do you think?
What was it you said? What's the name of it? What's
Right.
It's stripes to paint the white stripes for across that indicate this is a crosswalk.
Aren't they already there?
No.
They said, okay, but we need something up top, you know, up to
Well,
people know that it's.
Just to say, I was suggesting a two-stage, that would be the first stage. Then if council thought that was a good idea, then we would direct staff to do that. And the second stage would be investigate the flashing light.
I'd rather just say right now, I mean, I'd rather have both the stripes and the flashing lights. Let's just
Yeah, exactly.
get two birds with one stone here.
Yeah,
I'd like to find out the cost of the flashing light and what it
I mean, safety, right?
Yeah.
Safety is priceless.
exactly.
Or,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'd go for both. I mean, just look into the price now and.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Investigate.
Tonight, I'm saying tonight we give direction on the stripes and also direction on to come back to council with the
Yeah.
cost and the proposal so we can consider flashing lights or not. We're not saying go ahead, but we have more information to consider.
Yeah, because you think if the flashing lights cost $6,000, that's great. If they cost $100,000, maybe we need to think about that. So I'd like to know what the cost is, like, before we commit to something like that.
So council, staff, can I just, council, do you agree with directing staff to come back with a plan to paint stripes on? Then we're directing the stripes at Fourth and Fifth and Front.
Mhm.
And that council come back here. How do you want to do that? You don't, can we just direct you? This is low cost enough that this is doable? Okay.
So we will provide for crosswalks at Fifth and Front and Fourth and Front. That's what I've heard.
Crosswalk painting,
Yes.
just so we're clear. the term crosswalk? Does that
That
define?
crosswalk is the painted line. Yeah, crossover is the,
Okay.
Are we not looking at crossovers too? That's
Well, initially,
we need.
the direction tonight is crosswalk
Yeah, okay.
and come back with a report related to a flashing light or the next.
Yeah, okay. Direct, okay, got it, yeah.
Yeah, investigation.
Don't say bridge.
I'm going a bit too over, but can we make the crosswalks, like the crosswalks painted? Can we make them look nice? You know, kind of like what we had by the Burlington Town Beach. And then I know the paint chipped off pretty easily, but can we make them look pretty? Like, not just yellow lines, but can we?
These would be the yellow, so I think they're 24 inches wide roughly.
Be white.
It's there's like a zebra going across.
Yeah, I'm gonna be rainbow and maybe orange, make them look nice, inviting for the
I
town.
would ask that how they're painted and what they look like be left to staff.
Yep.
We have them here, but it's not a zebra stripe, it's two white lines that go across the street. So,
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But, and would we not also need a sign that says yield to pedestrians? That's not gonna cost a lot.
So
Those,
every crosswalk,
yes,
Whoa.
yes, I think so, because I don't think people know that you're supposed to stop if you see a pedestrian
can we
at
try public education first?
you can, but this is the first I've heard of it in my life. You know?
No, I'm trying to understand, Councilor Simpson. Are you saying that everywhere we have a crosswalk in town, you want signage saying yield to
Yes,
pedestrians?
so they know that is a crosswalk, yeah. I do not think that everybody
So
knows
painted
that.
crosswalks, you want those signs that painted crosswalks and unpainted
And the-
crosswalks.
And the, yeah, no, okay, you're gonna put the painted stripe there, but also a sign that says yield to pedestrians. Just
I think
wait,
what I asked for was the direction staff for the two and the crossover. I'm not in favor of what you're suggesting. I think that's a step too far. But it's council decision. I mean, you know what the cost of that would be, to put the signage up at every intersection was.
It would be very costly.
And I believe that it's part of your driver's training that if you come to a crosswalk and you see those white lines, that means you have to stop. If you don't know that, you probably shouldn't be driving. I hate
Yeah.
to say that, but
Guess it really
we can't put signs up for every driving law.
Okay,
Okay, I think we have, go ahead, Mary.
Thank you. Through you, I don't even know if that's on.
Yep.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, just to inform council, there are huge manuals called the Ontario Traffic Manual that outline or provide guidelines for all of your traffic controls. So based on this direction, we will go back to those manuals to see what kind of lines are required, what kind of signage is required. And there is a difference between crosswalks and crossovers. And the rules for traveling through them are different as well. And that will be part of the public education campaign that we're planning. And if I may, I think I understand this direction. I just wanted to, I hate to do it, I wanted to go back to the Fifth Avenue, the temporary parking space. I didn't quite understand temporary parking space. Are we talking about a loading zone?
I think
Okay.
it's achieved by what's on, in my mind, it's achieved by what you have there. It's a no parking zone in that fifth. You're talking about on Fifth Avenue from the lane went to Front Street?
Mhm.
So right now it's a no parking zone, which allows stopping and loading. Correct.
Okay, through you, Mayor Lawrence, that's the direction from council on that area?
Thought that was the recommendation from staff.
It is.
Hmm.
The recommendation from staff is no parking, which
Oh,
enables people
okay.
to drop off and pick up, but no parking.
Okay, I see.
So no reintroduction of the loading zone. A loading zone is primarily for loading large vehicles or offloading large vehicles, so if people or equipment or whatever.
I have a question.
Councillor Cox.
The loading zone. Why does the Legion have a loading zone and the senior center have a loading zone? Like what's the rationale behind that?
My understanding is that they have deliveries of heavy items that go through there
Through the Legion?
to the Legion.
For the sound systems and stuff.
Sound systems, sometimes their beer orders come through the front, usually it's the back, but sometimes it's the
Okay,
front.
so it's
Yeah.
for, it's for the
That's why they have the elevator at the front, I think, so.
Yes,
yes.
Yeah.
And there's,
Councillor Timpson.
I was gonna say, yeah, that's where they let off a lot, the buses coming.
Yes,
A lot
yeah.
of people for events.
All right, so anything else on the accessibility package?
Are we gonna let the,
Yeah, I will, yeah, thank you. I'm looking at Sam. Council member.
One last thing, sorry, and I had this written down. The only, like, the last question I have for this package is, would we be able to update the signage for Third in King? Because I remember when I first moved here, I was going through an accident because I didn't know that if you're coming up Third Avenue, you have the right of way. I thought it was an all-four stop. Can we maybe update? And I've seen them in larger centers where there's almost like a picture that says stop, stop, stop. This person has the right of way. So if you see that person coming up, you have to wait until they're passed.
We will check the signage.
It's like, yeah, three of this go under the stop
I
sign.
mean, generally, if there's not a stop sign, it means you just keep going.
Because like I didn't know that coming up, there's no stop sign because there's nothing that said these 1, 2, 3 have a stop sign. People coming up don't. And I remember my first day here, I almost got into an accident. Someone honked at me, but then I learned going up that there's no stop sign. Just something that's like a quick,
Yeah, and that wouldn't be a regulatory sign anyway, so
No.
we can look.
something just on the top of my head I had written down before the meeting.
Anything else, council, on the accessibility package? Staff, at this point? Okay, so are there any members of the public who wish to speak? Please step forward, state your name and just press that orange button. Should, there you go.
Ann Saltel, I'm just representing myself. I have, if through your mayor, can I ask Mr. Funk a question? All right, if I'm looking at Fifth Avenue, okay, you're coming from the fire hall straight down and you have to turn right or left onto Front Street,
Okay,
okay? There is absolutely going to be no parking at all between Front Street and King Street. So why could the parking that the senior center, and I'm just representing myself, cannot that still be reinstated? You're going straight down. The parking on the other side is not impeding fire truck, and the returning fire truck isn't going real fast.
well, through you, Mayor Lawrence. Responding down Fifth Avenue, if there were vehicles parked on the east side, in and of themselves, that's okay. Vehicles that are turning off of Front Street and encountering the fire truck that have to now be farther over because of parked vehicles are where we've had our near miss accidents.
Supposed to be changed. Sorry, if you need to keep quiet, thank you. Thank you.
It's the space that the parked vehicles are taking up that forces traffic into the responding apparatus lane as we approach King Street and the library area and Front Street at the senior center area.
I could appreciate that, but 365 days a year really restricts any parking on Fifth Avenue because we're going to maybe have a fire. And I'm not belittling that, and I know that it could be, but when I was in Winnipeg, there was parking everywhere, and those fire trucks and those ambulances, and they had to deal with it, and people had to deal with it. So I don't know, we're a small town. We're going to be limiting people. If I were a library patron, I don't know if I'd go to the library. So, well, the snow removal is so pathetic right now. You can't even get into the library. So to
Sorry,
have
I'm not sure how that relates to parking that's being proposed tonight, that's being discussed.
Fifth Avenue, right?
Snow removal.
No, I
on
know.
Library, though, isn't the issue before us.
No, it's not the issue before you, but accessibility to the building from the street is the issue, right? So
But that's not the issue we're discussing this evening. We're discussing a fire route.
I know you are, and I appreciate it, but I really opposed to this, so that's my opinion.
Thank you.
May I,
Yes.
Lawrence? I can appreciate that the potential of the fire route does impact parking at the library and the seniors center. And you're absolutely right. We're not a terribly busy fire department. We respond to a call every 2 point something days. The calls that see us travel down this route to King Street end of Fifth Avenue are typically more serious types of calls for us. We're trying to get out the highway to a vehicle education crash, or we're going to a more serious structure fire. When we compared all of our calls last year, the north part of town is where we respond to the frequent false alarms. So when looking at our numbers, the calls that take us down this route are more serious calls that require a timely response. I do appreciate that it's going to be inconvenient, but I do believe it was Councillor Van Breda that said our safety is priceless as we're trying to move these big apparatus through choked off roads due to parking.
Is there somebody else in the public who wishes to speak? Thank you.
On the library, will that be on the
That's
next,
just
the next one? Okay,
Yeah, the library's the next package.
I can wait then.
Okay.
Okay. I'll wait.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Just, well, everyone, the seniors losing that, Fifth Avenue, it just sort of supports the notion that people will be parking more on the south side of Front Street and they're gonna be walking across more. So it supports more the idea of, looking at crossovers and crosswalks.
Just want to hold off, Council. Is there anybody else in the public who wishes to speak to the accessibility issue? Package. And are you coming forward, Dan? Yep.
And I on a
Press that. Thank you.
I'm Diana excuse my gravelly voice. The senior center's been there for over 40 years. The accommodation for them, for seniors to be safely moving between the vehicles and the center has been established over many, many years. Now, all of a sudden, that's an issue. We've always had fire trucks. We've always had other people using the street. And all of a sudden now it's a problem. One of the things that I notice is that both sides of the street, Fifth Avenue, have big snowbanks. And those snowbanks restrict the street. Now, when I park at the handicap parking zone, like I'm disabled, when I park in the handicap zone, I try to park up to the front of the lane, not back, so I let other people come and use the center. Now, most of the time this winter, I've had to walk either out on the traffic area or on the sidewalk, get around on the sidewalk, because there's no access between the sidewalk and the street when I park there. So that means me moving out into the traffic lane a little bit more. So if that snowbank was gone on both sides, there would be lots of room. But at this point in time, the way the street is maintained is an issue because of the snowbank. It's not the width of the street. It's the hazards that make us park over on the street a little bit more than necessary, than if it was cleaned up. So if that was cleaned up, there's every person here representing the center has mobility issues. So if you make us walk across the street and down to the parking lot, we can't do it. There is not adequate public transportation for us. So we're handicapped by having to go to the center and having a place to park so we can access the center. Most of us are single people, so we don't have a partner that's able to drop us off. So we're accommodating other people rather than accommodating the seniors. And this, I have to say, at this point in time, this is not becoming a an age-friendly community. We're friendly to families. We're friendly to people that need services. We're friendly to a whole bunch of people, but we are not friendly to we're not an age-friendly community. If you look at the Canada age-friendly community, what an age-friendly community is, this is not an age-friendly community. And the experience at the senior center at this point, we've been there for over 40 years. And now we're accommodating other people rather than accommodating the seniors. So thank you for listening to me. I know it's difficult and you're trying to keep everybody happy. And sometimes you have to have people a little bit unhappy. But really, seniors like us, we don't need to be that unhappy. I mean, there's a lot of us who we won't be able to go to the center if we have to do a lot of walking. And the streets are hazardous, slippery and so on. So we do the best we can. So thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the public who wishes to speak?
Hi, I'm Judy Hindi, and I'm with on the executive for the senior center. And I just want to reiterate what Diana has said, that coming down senior center, down across towards downtown, that is a downhill slope and it's sheer ice all the time in the winter. And it makes it very difficult even to park on the places that we can park at the present time and access onto the street. The last time I was there, I had to park on the side and walk down the street because I was so terrified I was going to fall on the sidewalk because it's sheer ice and it's a downhill slope and all that water collects on that corner. And every person that enters the senior center takes a huge risk of falling or causing some other injury to themselves. And like Diana has said, this shouldn't be a new issue. It's been there for 40 some years. And what I just want to comment on what you had said about is a fire truck is coming down towards Front Street and somebody is wanting to turn up. That's going to create a problem because we're parked on that left side, on the right side going north. They're supposed to stop. If you hear an ambulance or a fire truck, you're supposed to stop your vehicle and let them go. That's what I was taught, and maybe I'm wrong. But I was taught that if you see an ambulance, if there's an ambulance coming behind you or a fire truck, you are to pull over and let them pass. It runs very smoothly in the cities. And there is no accidents. They're on their route to get to a fire, and they have no issues of people. And it's a fine if you don't do that. You might get run over yourself in your vehicle if you don't do that, as well as a fine. So it's pretty, it runs pretty smoothly in the cities, and I don't see why that can't run smoothly here in Sioux without taking any parking away from anybody on that side street of Fifth Avenue. Because there is no parking on the other side. So like I say, I don't know what the issue is, other than they don't want any parking anywhere. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak? If Chief, you want to speak?
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, the document, I just want to provide a little clarity to the public here and to council. The documented incident, the near miss that we had on Fifth Avenue at Front Street, the fire truck was responding, had just crossed King Street, was proceeding towards Fifth Avenue, and a vehicle turned right off of Front onto Fifth. So they had no way of seeing the fire truck. they may have heard sirens, but as soon as they were on Front Street or Fifth Avenue, sorry, now they are face to face with responding apparatus, vehicles parked in the right turning lane on Fifth that pulled over and stopped, as you're supposed to do, because this is how we drive. And there was no room for both vehicles to get through the parked cars. So that was the incident that led to the near miss on Fifth Avenue. Friend.
Back to the council table. Council Costello.
Now, my other question is, so the proposed route,
Right, if you wish to speak, could you state your name and come forward, given the opportunity, but otherwise. Thank you.
so on this proposal, King Street is a thoroughfare with parking, right?
Thoroughfare doesn't mean no parking.
Oh, okay, so on King Street, like by Tikanagan, like what? They
So-
have adequate parking, because Tikanagan is a big,
Yes, so we will be removing a couple of those parking spaces as
Yeah.
well. From there, we did reach out to them. We received no feedback,
oh,
so
okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
we actually sent them a letter and the entire package and invited them to meet with us, but we didn't hear.
yeah, because that's a very difficult spot,
It
like
is.
when it's much better now that Cat's Paws moved, but before they had in and out traffic and it was almost impossible to park there.
Yeah.
And then Wilson's is the other one, but Wilson's has parking in front of it, right? And the library. Does it has parking in front of it or no parking in front of it?
Yes, there's parking at the library.
yeah,
on the street.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
On the,
yes, the side of the library.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Council Timpson and then Council Galbraith.
Yeah, I think it's very good we're having this discussion. I think that the reality is, and I could have my stats wrong, but in 10 years, 25% of the population will be over the age of 65. And some of you folks here, I'm just saying we have to look.
No, no, that is national, local. or-
As they say, my statistics are not, probably not right, but it's something like that in 10 years, 25%. I think that's the last I heard. But basically saying in a few years, you're going to have sometimes more seniors than you're going to have juniors. And if you guys are lucky, you'll all be in that situation. You're going to have mobility problems and you'll likely be alive and you're going to want to go places. So I'm just saying we have to think about. Don't quote me on those statistics, but it's in that neighborhood. Okay, that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, we do have an aging population. Remember at the KDMA conference, the Northern Policy Institute even said that Northern Ontario, the rates of persons who are 65 and older is actually way more than it would be in the South. So we do, yeah, you're right. We do have to think about in the future, all communities will be older, right? So definitely we have to think about that. I agree with you. But the one thing I wanted to ask, just for the record, in front of the Red Apple, there will be no stopping. So taxis, anything, they cannot stop in front of the Red Apple.
people out and move on.
Yeah, but no parking. Yeah.
But no, there's no parking now.
Mhm.
Yeah, there hasn't been parking there for a long time, right in front of the Red Apple.
Yeah.
There's a couple of spots beyond the main doors.
Mhm.
Yeah. But right in front of the main doors, there's no parking.
Okay.
No stopping.
No stopping. Yeah.
Council Timpson.
And just one more thing I was going to mention is that with the number of people that have come down from the north to live in medically supported housing with disabilities, not necessarily seniors, but young people, that increases the need here for us to think about accessibility as a absolutely imperative pillar of our community. Not just because of the aging population, but for the type of people that we have living in Sioux Lookout for medical reasons in wheelchairs. You see young people in wheelchairs. You see young people with walking with canes who are living in the medically assisted housing here. That's all I wanted to say.
All right, so anything further, council? So here we are. Has anything the public said made you want to change anything here? Difficult decisions, yeah. The distance between the laneway and the front street is, I'm gonna guess approximately 45 meters. 150, a lot depth would be typically 150 feet, so in that range.
All right, through your worship. So the lot sizes there would be 150 feet deep, right?
So what we're really talking, I think the significant issue is from the laneway to Front Street. And that's the issue that the chief has brought up as well. So here we have and the 9 meters back from the corner is no parking anyway. That's by carrier law. So we're dealing with about 35 meters. Well, take the laneway, 35 meters of distance.
Meters from the laneway?
I think it would still be 9 meters from the intersection.
Sorry, 9 meters from the intersection. I'm subtracting that from, if it's 150 feet, I guess we could talk in feet, but we're talking in meters, so I'm sorry, I'm gonna.
Through Mayor Lawrence, that also includes, you need to detract the 9 meters from the laneway
Yes.
coming back down towards Front Street. I think the fire route and the no parking, but with the temporary loading zone, is that what we're called?
We're not gonna use that term.
Use that term, but the temporary unloading area, whatever term it ends up being, is a good compromise with no vehicles permanently parked there, while the senior center has the ability to drop off people closer to the door and then relocate that vehicle somewhere else. Just my opinion.
I mean, just a thought, like on Front Street in general, there is a lot of parking. It's just not except by the seniors. So could we not add some allocated senior parking right in that space? I know because people who aren't seniors could maybe walk a little farther because there is.
So we have recently had conversations, complaints, from the public actually, who are trying to access Charlie's Diner, who are already complaining about seniors using parking in that area. Not from the owner, from his clients. Yeah. So again, our practice isn't to provide allocated specific spaces, because where do you draw the line then? Every business would want several spots in front of theirs for.
Yeah, because it's sort of unfortunate that there's like 3 businesses right there with the post office. That's the public uses on a daily basis, where the other ones are a lot employee based, right? So they can park in lots, but the seniors, Charlie's, the post office and the B&O, like people that come and go all day. So it's sort of that little corner there is it's sort of come and go traffic. It's
So there is, again, it is 2-hour parking in all of downtown. I suppose it would be interesting to know whether or not, just listening to the feedback from the public, I'm a little confused as to why there's a parking lot for the senior center that doesn't get used.
I think so.
Sure, you want to speak to
Well, the parking and,
this first package, the
well,
acceptability package?
yeah, I guess so. I'm not sure. It's about Brian's comments in the budget.
Okay, so just, I'll allow you to come forward, but I'll open it up to the public after each enhancement package. That's okay. That's okay. But at some point, it becomes a discussion at the council table.
Oh, okay.
But please go ahead next time.
Sorry, it's Carol Maxwell and I'm just a member of the public who participates in the senior center. So 2 things, the parking lot does get used up by Wilson. So I park up there because I don't have mobility problems yet. But the other thing, I just find it interesting that customers at Charlie's Diner would complain because the senior center operates from 9:30 till 11:30. And then no afternoons except for cards, which ends at like 4. So meal times, people aren't even at the senior center. So just a comment.
Yeah, it's, I mean, I hear what you're saying about CIO, but not catering. I hear what Age Friendly is saying. I hear not catering to businesses. And as you put up a sign that said senior center parking limited, then if it was limited to the senior center, then it would be vacant much of the day because of the limited time there. It's awkward. With that, Councilor Rabreda.
This is also a long shot too. Maybe in the future, can we think about maybe turning the former McPhee's bar into a parking lot? Would that be possible, or is that beyond our scope here?
I believe that's still privately owned. Is it? Yeah, it's not we can't discuss that. It's not our property.
We would have to purchase it.
Heavens to Betsy, I'm gonna throw out a terrible compromise or a suggestion. What if there was doing that was distances thing, so it's 150 meters less what did it say, 9 meters at each end, so 150 feet. Less 27, 30 feet, 60 feet, so you're left with 90 feet in the middle. What's the length of a vehicle parking spot?
Mayor Lawrence, I'm not convinced you're entirely accurate with your numbers here. I don't believe there's 150 meters.
No, feet.
I think there's 5 parking spots in that. That's what this says.
Yeah.
So I think what's really important to remember too, though, is that there is a right and left turning lane at the bottom of the street, as well as a northbound lane. So that is where a lot of the congestion happens, and that's where a lot of the danger is. Frankly, anything from the back lane down is problematic.
Okay, so I was going to suggest one parking spot close, as close as possible to the back lane, away from those turning lanes and the corner.
The back lane is also very busy.
Yeah.
Okay, Council, I'm looking for your direction on.
So just procedurally, are we voting on each package and moving to the next package? Or are we voting on a package as a whole?
So we're just taking notes on the direction for each package, and then we'll ask council to pass the bylaw this evening based on all the changes that were directed.
Hearing nothing, I'm going to move on to the next. As we call it, because I think there may be a bit of overlap. I'm not sure.
Okay. Good. That's to go.
I'm just looking at the screen. Should council adopt staff's accessibility package as shown in terms of the accessibility? If it was just purely the accessibility spots, I would say yes.
Okay, so. Okay. So, the next item, is regarding, Second Avenue North. The January draft of the bylaw proposed no parking on both sides for the full length of the street. We did receive 11 comments. And so, we are now recommending somewhat narrower measure that would involve no parking on alternate sides of the street during peak school hours during the school year. The slide illustrates that I'm going to confirm the hours and times with the school before we had the signage created, but 8 to 9. 12 to 1 or 11:30 to 12:30, 3 to 4 or 2:30 to 3:30, whatever those busy times are at the school. Sorry.
Do people park there? I've never seen parking there.
On Second Avenue North? Yes, it's a huge issue.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a lot of complaints from the public this fall in that neighborhood. Because people unfortunately are picking their children up from the school there, and instead of having the correct entrance, we have also had discussions with the school, and they're doing everything they can to try to mitigate that, but they can't control where parents pick up their children. So this recommendation is intended to balance two things that came through in the comments: the concern about superseding traffic behavior during school peaks, and the concern that a permanent full street ban would be too broad for residents, families, and visitors. So that's essentially the feedback. So the current bylaw allows parking on both sides, Second Avenue North. The draft that was circulated in January, looked at, was removing parking on both sides. And this draft is suggesting no parking on alternate sides during school hours during the school year.
All right. Council comments. Councilor Timpson.
Does anyone, or anybody who lives there, do they need the street for parking on the street, or do they all have garages?
Well, every residence has a driveway.
They do, okay.
But there is a lot of on-street parking because there isn't enough room for guests and stuff when they visit. So that's why there's parking on the street. So we're suggesting limiting that parking one side of the street at a time between those busy school hours.
This would be some, and do we have any of that for snow removal in Silicon? I see it in Thunder Bay, I think, alternate sides of the street.
We don't require it for snow removal.
But it's parking on alternate sides and alternate days is
Parking.
Yeah.
calendar parking is, it's not unknown, yeah. Okay, Councilor Brady.
So then how will the signage work? Will they be on every corner just saying alternate parking? Like what will?
Yeah, it'll be signed to say that, no parking in this area between these times on these days.
Okay.
Are there any members of the public who wish to speak to this package number 2? Relating to Second Avenue North? Seeing nobody, council, anything further? Staff?
Should we,
Oh, yeah, sorry.
should we be doing education pieces on the kiss and go? Like,
Yeah, so
that's the problem, like people, like I pick my grandchildren up all the time and people violate the kiss and go rules all the time, right? Like they just do what they want to sort of thing, sort of free for all. They don't want to walk a distance, so, and the schools have adequate parking. It's just required that you have to walk quite a distance.
So the Sioux High School has been very collaborative and cooperative in terms of trying to address the issue. They've allowed us to go into the school and make presentations and so on and so forth. They've sent messaging home to the parents. So we're hoping that all of these combined will have, ideally we'll get to the point where we'll be able to remove all parking restrictions from Second Ave North because people don't pick up their children there anymore.
Councilor Timpson.
No, I think my question's been answered. Thanks.
Anything further, council? All right, staff.
Good to move on to the next item. Okay, let's see here.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, with the 11 people responding, that's a fair number of people in that area. I'm just wondering, are they okay with this proposal?
Well, we wouldn't know.
It's been made available.
This is our response to their concerns.
It was available, though, was it not?
Yes, this is part of the
Yeah.
package that's available to the public. Yep.
And they haven't, so silence is golden, I would think.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So the downtown parking package is the next piece. Staff recommends keeping the package together because the downtown core, the library, the arena, they all turn on the same policy question: how to balance turnover with realistic parking needs for people who have whose activities extend beyond 2 hours. So first, staff recommends keeping the downtown 2-hour limit, but clarifying that it applies on the same side of the street. So in plain language, after 2 hours, a vehicle must move to the other side of the street, not just slightly forward or backward. And this closes the shuttling loophole while preserving turnover in the downtown core. Second, for longer library events, staff recommends registration and plate notification rather than a paper permit. Third, staff recommends keeping the arena within the same downtown framework rather than creating a separate set of rules just for that location. Public feedback emphasized the practical reality that work shifts, library programs, and reading activities can extend beyond 2 hours. Staff's view is that the answer is to fine tune the enforcement approach and exemptions and not to abandon turnover in the downtown core altogether.
Councillor Timpson.
Several questions and comments. The 2 hour limit on Front Street, is it realistic, given that 2 hours are usually put in because you've got a lot of businesses and people wanting to come and shop, and they can't find a place to park, they'll go. But how many businesses have we got on Front Street? Not many. And so aren't most of the parking spots then people that are working, and because there's offices along there?
Some would be people working for sure, but I don't think we should undermine the number of businesses that we have on Front Street. The quietest section would be between 5th and 4th, but the opposite ends are actually quite heavily populated with businesses, post office, WASA, many types of organizations are occupied there. So there's, yeah.
I guess my point being that there's probably more workers on that street than there are customers.
I couldn't say. We haven't tracked that type of data, but the parking restrictions or the 2 hour parking still applies to those people who are at work. And they are supposed to have other places to go. Like, Centennial Center had dedicated parking. They shouldn't be parking on the street.
Could those people get a special parking pass? The people for whom there is no parking lot in the rear of their business, could they not have a pass?
There is, there is a municipality has a parking lot immediately across from the post office that is free parking. There's no restriction on time, except I think even overnight parking is allowed there.
Correct.
And I've never seen it at capacity. It's extremely close to the downtown. Try going downtown Toronto and parking that close to where you're going. It's extremely close. No cost. Also, the Centennial Center has parking in the rear, and the municipality has free parking behind the railway station. And I believe there's still parking near the beer store. Is there not? There's municipal parking. So there's ample parking that is never at capacity. And these people would have to walk less than half a block. Councillor Van Drayden.
I was gonna say, because I remember when I worked at the former Rexall, we were told to park at the train station. And when I work at the LCBO, we park across from the LCBO in that parking lot. I was wondering, like, maybe can there be signage there? There's this, like, the train station has parking for you, for workers, right? Across, yeah, just
I think
the signage.
business owners know and advise their staff like yours did. Yeah.
And
And
then,
the other thing we have to be careful of with signage is the reality is that people can only absorb so much when they're driving, and they will just shed what they feel is extraneous. And so we have to be careful to strike that balance on the signage side of things as well.
so then,
Sorry.
oh, sorry, just one last question on this. For parking enforcement, how does that work for 2 hour parking? Like, is the parking bottle, are they taking time? You know what I mean? Like, are they, okay, this truck? Or you know what I mean? Like, what, how does it work?
The location is geo-recorded on the Oxcom system, and it's matched with the plate. So we know exactly where that vehicle was parked 2 hours ago.
Okay.
Councillor Bowles go first, and then Councillor Timpson.
I think we owe it to our businesses to have parking on Front Street. And there are businesses, like the Mayfair is just opening 4 businesses. I go downtown all the time. You know, there's the Hub, there's the Senior Center, you know, so there are the banks, you know, so people are constant, the liquor stores, there's Cheers, there's quite a few businesses on Front Street. And you have to have parking, and you cannot have, and we have probably, you know, over 1,000 employees downtown parking, and I think it's part of the employer's hiring package. Where is parking located? That's not our job to tell you if you work at Tikanaga where you're supposed to be parking. That's the employer. And it's their job to, to advise that. So I do agree with this 2-hour parking. I know some of there's a business owner who likes to park out front and is not happy, but you want people to shop in your store there. You can't park your car out front of your business.
I think Councilor Thurston, you had a good
Yeah, can you just clarify one thing? I noticed that the parking limit is from 7 AM till midnight. On another document, it said 7 AM till 1:30 in the morning. I wasn't quite sure what the difference was, but that doesn't matter. But did you say that these are they policed by the videos or I don't know.
There's a note, so the overnight parking restrictions for the winter, so it's only winter from midnight to 7 AM. It's not year round. So I just want to clarify that it's only. For
Oh,
winter.
okay, but yeah.
So they are, those are enforced by our night shift crew.
Okay, so there, I didn't realize there was a night shift. I guess I would ask if,
Like our public works crews.
right,
When they're plowing the streets, if they're not able to deal with it, then they will issue tickets and people are parked where they're not supposed to be.
okay, so we have 2-hour parking. In some, let's say it's summertime, you have 2-hour parking, does that apply after supper? When there's nobody on Front Street anyways? Yes. I guess that considered me why would you want to limit somebody on the street at 8 o'clock at night when the street's empty?
Again, I guess I would ask, why not? If the street's empty, then there's nobody there. So
No, but-
why allow longer parking if no one's there?
I don't know.
I guess I would suggest it's easier to keep consistent instead of people being like, okay, well, between these hours, I can only park for 2 hours, and then between these hours, I can park a limited number of hours. Like that gets confusing for the public, and that gets difficult to sign as well.
It's just that in most places, the restricted parking is from 9 until 6 or something like that during rush hour and business hours.
I'm gonna guess the likelihood of that vehicle getting ticketed is extremely low.
Yeah.
At
Yeah,
7 PM, the summer
it's
night.
not impossible.
Councilor Dawson.
My question is about the no overnight parking. So like the no overnight parking at the rec center is only in the winter?
No, that's at all.
Okay, so, and it says except in exceptions.
Yes.
So when there are the units rented, let's say for the baseball social, there is allowed to be overnight parking? Because if you're serving alcohol, you have to allow people to park there.
Well, they can park
Yeah.
at the parking lot on Front Street, which is open to the public all hours.
So if you, let's say the appraisal goes to the social and I was only gonna have 2 drinks, but now I've had 5 drinks and I can't leave my vehicle there?
No.
Well, I think there has to be an exception when you are renting the facility for use of alcohol, that you have to allow overnight parking. Because, everyone isn't perfect and plan ahead. And if you put a restriction in that you're going to have your vehicle towed or you're going to be fined by leaving your vehicle there, people will make a different choice and create a dangerous situation. So I think that when it says except for exceptions, that exception has to be when the facility is rented for the use of alcohol, you have to be able to overnight park.
I'm gonna suggest that the people who are renting it and taking the alcohol license should inform the people who are coming that if you intend to have more than the legal limit, don't park on site. There's no overnight parking here. Park. So plan your night.
So
That doesn't always work out.
part of the rationale for this is frankly is liability. Vehicles that have parked overnight in that parking lot have been vandalized, and then we get people come after us for that because they expect that if they're leaving their vehicle there, we're also providing security, and we can't. So that's for half of the year. The other half of the year is because of snow removal.
Yeah.
So it is quite a liability for us to allow overnight parking. So that's why we're trying to clean that up.
If we're renting the facilities to somebody who then is applying for a liquor license, they still have to come. We are aware of that.
Yes.
And can we then inform them that they should inform their patrons that there is no overnight parking?
Yes.
Okay.
That would be part of the facility rental.
Yeah, thanks.
I tend to agree with Councillor Costco, you know, you could be liable for somebody who gets in, who's drunk, who gets in his car because he can't leave it there and kill somebody. Well, you would see people sue for everything now, and they sue everybody that's on the list. So I agree. I think there should be a mechanism where there's an exception. You could have a little ticket in the front saying permission granted to stay here, and you could even have them sign something that if the car is vandalized, that it's totally in their ballpark.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, I think that that type of policy decision is encouraging people not to be responsible. I think we should be encouraging people to make responsible choices, not encouraging them to not plan for their evening.
Well, we have drive home programs all over the place, and people say, leave your truck here, come here, get your taxi.
Right.
We-
So if there's
we
any
can say,
chance
no,
that
I don't
may
think-
not be, then why not just park downtown?
Well,
That's where the free parking is, and overnight parking is allowed.
because they're human. That's why, and humans make
But
mistakes.
if we don't create parameters and requirements, then no one is ever going to improve. Like, it's important to protect our assets. It's important to reduce liability exposure. It's important to not have to deal with people who are complaining that their vehicle was vandalized because they drank too much the night before. Like, I think people need to be responsible for themselves. I don't think that's the municipality's responsibility.
Well, I don't think it's I think our responsibility is to keep people safe and safe from themselves, not and from others. As you know, liability. Okay, well, that's part of the game. I would support that this be permitted.
If somebody parked there overnight, what are the consequences?
They may or may not get a ticket.
So they can park there and get a ticket. And
But we don't tow them, right?
We could.
We could likely wouldn't.
so, I mean, if that's the choice they have and they feel they have no, and others encourage them to make that choice, they may or may not get a ticket. Councilor Under.
I'm just thinking for events that have alcohol. So would that be like every Bombers game? No, I could have, I mean, since my surgery, I have 2 drinks and I'm already under the table. So I mean, I could have 2 beers at a Bombers game and then, I know, like, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just trying to play the devil's advocate here.
And the Bombers games are in the winter, which further complicates and it makes the situation difficult.
If you leave, on the information on the rental agreement, there's no more parking, and if people do leave their vehicle here, you may be ticketed. And the cost of the fine will be put that on there, and
Yeah, how much of that?
we can make the decision about they want to pay a $50 fine and leave their car. It's the smart thing to do, or somebody makes that decision for them. Anything further on the downtown package?
And just that we have to be very flexible on that, because we're talking human lives. And we have the rent agreement, but it's be appropriate just at some point. Put a little sign in the window and say, please don't ticket from the municipality.
Councilor Crossman.
Now, what is the change at Valor Way? I don't understand what the change there is.
I think If it's just beyond Way, I think it's the introduction of the new accessible parking space at 8.
So that's the only change that happened in just a new accessible parking spot?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any further comments? We'll go to the public and ask if there are any public who wish to speak to package 3. Please.
Hi, my name is Nicole Rogers, the CEO of the Sioux Public Library that I'm speaking on behalf of. So wonderful job on the stuff, like getting all the info together, but my concern is the library has limited parking up top, not down the hill, because there is parking there. But if you have like a baby and a carry and 2 little children and you're trying to take them up the hill, it doesn't happen. So I understand the concern with the fire lane being one, but a lot of it's the turning. Is there the ability in the middle, across from the library, there's those like 2 spots by the house, and then get rid of the spot closest to the stop sign on the far side. So then you have the ability to turn still to avoid the fire truck if it's coming down, and that would give us an extra 2 parking spots. Is that?
So you're talking about the east side of Fifth Avenue.
So right now we have the parking all along the street on this side. So the municipality also has a couple spots, and then the parking lot here. I was just wondering, the one kind of near the back lane, there's about 2 spots in between that and the driveway for the house. Because I know that would give the space right immediately at the intersection on the east side to pull in if there is an emergency vehicle coming. I was just wondering if maybe that's keeping the safety and then keeping everyone, just giving more spots.
Chief, you want to skip?
Yeah, so through you, Mayor Lawrence, I appreciate the thought or the suggestion. The issues that we're having at the library area are vehicles again being parked on both sides of the road, choking off the travelable portion of the roadway. It's not necessarily a turning issue like we have at Front Street. It's half a block away from the King Street intersection, vehicles parked on both sides. I've responded myself in fire vehicles and Command 70. Command 70 goes to a lot more incidents than the full-scale fire trucks. Sometimes you can't get by there in a half ton if there's vehicles parked there. I've seen, unfortunately, people loading children out of the back of the minivans with the sliding doors on either side into the street when we're trying to get by. I've seen near-miss accidents involving just regular traffic, not even factoring in a fire truck requiring more space moving at a more determined purpose.
Part of the reason for people parking further in and narrowing it would be the snow removal issue that was brought up earlier. I know this is parking, but people are parking further out, so you know how there's the legal requirement, you have to park so close to the barrier, with the snow not being removed, or there's no walkable spot except in the accessibility. People are parking further away to get their children out of the car on the safe side. There is the occasional that will do it on the other side. It's never.
So I think it's important to remember that this was an exceptional winter with snow. We have struggled. There's no doubt about that. But the narrowness of the road is not just an issue in the winter. It's an issue year round, even when there are no snowbanks, unfortunately.
Okay. Like I said, I'm just doing this on behalf of this library. This is what has been brought to my attention from my staff. It's also a safety concern for a lot of staff if they're working the night shift. They do not want to be parked in the back parking lot.
Yes, and we've had several discussions about that, so that's sort of a separate issue from the parking, but we can.
And I think you've addressed that by us being able to email, right? That was a new proposal.
Yes.
And it can be from any of our staff, correct? Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to double check that just to make sure, because then that would cover, I believe, if a staff member, say, comes to work at 4.
Yeah.
And is working until 7 and they would like to park on the street.
Yes.
They try during the day, we try to avoid it because then we don't want it to be taking from the people, but
Absolutely.
the patrons visiting us. But Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, and just speaking personally, I think the idea of publicly educating people, especially say the arena, you have parking both sides. People do not know they're supposed to be pulling in when there's two ways. Cause I know the ambulance can get in, but two vehicles trying to go at the same. Just personally, I would say publicly educating people, if there's a spot to pull over, kind of like when you're in Winnipeg, there's a lot of narrow streets.
Mhm.
The onus is on the person to pull over and in to allow. So that was just my personal kind of thing. And that would also, I think, help the ambulance and such if people know these things and having the availability to pull over. Yeah. So.
Chief.
Chief Mayor Lawrence, just to provide a little bit of clarity, the incidents that happened last year occurred in the summertime, not at the end of the 2025-2026 winter with the snowbanks. It's people parking across from the library, unloading kids running to the library because they're going to do the thing. It's exciting and they want to get in there. And that's where we've seen our two near miss accidents there. And I've witnessed numerous others in my time working for the municipality in that area because of the bottleneck. And it doesn't really seem to matter if it's summer or winter.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Like I said, I was just asked to speak, so I said my piece. Hopefully it made sense to everyone. You know, if you want clarification on anything or have questions.
Thank you. Council.
Now, do we have a parking share agreement with the library on our municipal parking lot, like for here?
Mhm.
Yes,
So their staff can park in our parking lot at night, right? If they're working? Yes,
yes,
they're allowed to, right?
that,
Yeah.
that would be one of the
Yeah.
exceptions for overnight
Yes.
parking.
As you're, I'm going to go back, sure, public, yeah, that's where we are, so carry on.
Hi, Ann Saltel. I'm with the library right now. I just wanted to try and simplify sort of if there are events at the library, wouldn't it be easier for the library to let the municipality know we're having an event and it may be longer than 2 hours? So please don't ticket anybody, like rather than trying to get license plates and who's here and like that's a lot of bureaucracy for an event.
So all we're asking is that when parents come in, or patrons come in, they go to the circulation desk, say, this is my license plate. I'm going to park here for more than 2 hours. And then staff email or by law enforcement staff. So we're not trying to set up a complicated process. I think that's pretty straightforward. The reason that we're suggesting that it be specific to library, because then what if somebody else comes along and parks there for 4 hours who isn't going to the library? Then your patrons have less space available because people are parking there. So that's why we decided to do it by vehicle and not by event.
Can't speak to staff. You know, when there's two staff in the library and one's running an event to send over license plate numbers when there, you know, there could be 50 people there. Anyway, that's,
So there's only 4 or 5 parking spaces there.
you know, I know that, but anyway, let Nicole speak to it if she wishes.
Thank you. Anybody else in the public wish to speak to package 3?
Just ask if we want to speak.
It's the library. The library.
Seeing nobody, I will come back to the council table. Councilor Coughlin.
I do agree with Mrs. Sawtell. I did go to the henna event and I was shocked how many people were there. I went to the book signing, again, shocked how many people were there. And the henna event, for example, the staff are running around chickens with their heads cut off. There's no way that they could be taking license plates numbers. I think it's much easier for them to just say, we're having a big event tonight. Can you just, you know, look the other way, you know,
So again, there's only so many cars that can park on the side. It's like it's not 1,500 cars we're talking about. We're talking about 4 or 5 cars who are going to be parked there for more than 2 hours.
well, at the henna event, cars were parked all the way down this entire street, all the way down there, all the way down there. Like there were cars everywhere in your parking lot, like the whole area was full. The whole, half the town, like it was a huge event. So, and they've had several massive events like that. And people are parked everywhere. Like the
But
whole
we're
area,
specifically concerned about
just those 4 spots.
the downtown core, the 2-hour limited parking. That's the focus is providing an exemption to that 2-hour parking for library events that last longer than 2 hours. Our original proposal, which the library didn't care for, was that we would just hand people a permit that they could put in there. And then there would be no recording of license plate numbers. It would just be a permit that would be handed, it would be dated for that day. But the library's response to that was that people don't want to have to go back into their car after they've come in.
Yeah.
So we tried to find something that was a little less onerous than having someone has to do a bit of work, either library staff or the patrons.
I sort of think of this as when we have motorcycle events and we roll through every stop sign in town and we get pulled over by the police. You know, we phone them and we tell them we're doing an event. We're gonna roll through every stop sign in town. It's a parade, you know, funeral parade, same thing. It's a big event, you know, it's happening. You just look the other way. We make it pretty simple. And if there's 4 people that steal 2-hour parking from us, do we really care? Like, is that really that big of a deal to inconvenience 50 people? Like,
Again, I think we're trying to get away from, oh, let's just look the other way. The point of having a bylaw with rules, with exemptions, if they exist, if they're reasonable, is to provide a clear set of rules that everyone has to follow. A ride through town is just that. It's a ride through town. The police are still notified in advance. Like there's still stuff that has to happen even when that happens. The impression that I got from the library was that these 2-hour plus programming happens on a very regular basis during the day, not just in the evenings, that people come and need to stay longer than 2 hours on a regular basis. So if this is something that happens on a regular basis, then we need to have a system in place to provide for that, to accommodate that.
well, I think the story hour can be treated differently than when they have large events. When they have a large event, which they have, I would probably say 4 or 5 times a year you have large events. You know, I think on those occasions, they should just be able to say, we're having an extra large event. This is a big event and there's going to be people parking all over. Story hour, they could take the license plate numbers, I think. But look, huge events that are happening in the evening, which happen, you know, 4 or 5 times a year, you know, I think we could simplify it for them.
On the same theme, the arena, for hockey games or hockey tournaments, how does the 2-hour parking work there?
The rule applies. It's 2 hours. So people can change sides. They can change parking spots in between periods. They can, it's 2 hour.
I think, yeah, Councilor.
Yeah, I know that in St. John's, Newfoundland, is that a big cathedral service there. There's no parking everywhere. The police just said, no, we're not bothering. We just forget it. You know, Christmas Day, people, and we're a small town, and here in big cities, they've got that flexibility where they do break the rules and bend the rules for special occasions.
I think there's a difference from legislating, bending the rules in a bylaw and using common sense, which staff I would suggest do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody in the middle of the final inning of or period of a hockey game is gonna run out and move their car. They're just not gonna do it.
And staff are going to use good judgment.
I think that, yeah, using judgment, that's pretty, you know, wishy-washy too. Just say, you know, I don't know what,
Yeah.
what's the word that you would use? It's,
Yeah, I'm not in favor of making people feel like they have to move their car during a hockey game
Yeah.
or during an event. Like, this is a small town. We have adequate parking. We do not need to make people feel, I've been told before, I have huge parking anxiety, been told multiple times. It's huge when getting a parking ticket is not bad, but people, take parking seriously. And I don't think that you should have anxiety that, oh my God, I have to go move my car during the hockey game, or I have to leave because I can't find it. Where would you, like, everyone has to go and just jump their cars? Like, that's just craziness. Like, that makes no sense at all. You move here and I'll move here, and like, it just,
So
I think
what I'm hearing
it's-
then is that council wants rules, council wants fines, council wants people to follow the rules, but not on special events. Is that the rule?
What
I'm
we're
hearing?
saying is the purpose of 2-hour parking is so that employees do not take all the parking spots that are intended for businesses, and that parking rolls over properly and effectively, so we service our businesses. That's the purpose of 2-hour parking. 2-hour parking is not at heart, it's not to be put in place to penalize people. It's being put into place to have proper controls on parking so businesses are accessible to everyone. The arena during an event, making people move, it's not helping anyone. That doesn't,
So to clarify, what I'm hearing then is we want different rules.
we want some
for-
flexibility.
You want different rules for the arena.
And the
you want
library.
Different rules for the library.
It's,
Okay,
Yeah.
so you need to tell us then specifically what those rules are. Because
I think, yeah.
we have made our recommendations, so we need to know what you were saying.
I think what I'm hearing is that, what you've suggested that is fine, except, and these are the special events. And that, how do you determine what is special?
Right.
And the library has said half a dozen a year is what I understand.
Speak.
Certainly.
One suggestion for the library in particular, most of our events are not longer than 3 hours parking, and then we wouldn't have to worry. Most people, they're done within the hour, but there are those events, especially say story time. People come right at 10, they will stay until 1 easily. A couple of the families after story time doing crafts and everything. Could 3 hour for the library?
Yeah.
So if we made 3-hour parking, you're suggesting on, sorry,
On the one side, because I've understood that
on one
it's
side of Fifth Avenue, 3-hour parking. That would mean then, not only for special events, it would mean,
But I think even with you guys too, the municipality, I think there's enough people coming and going that there'd still be parking freed up before that 3-hour window, but that does give the people coming for events the time period to stay. Cause like I said, last year alone, we had about 436 events at the library. Most of them are under the 2 hours, or people come and go, like drop in Lego and things where it's just you come, you go. It's usually within the hour. People come and browse for books, half hour. So there is a lot of turnover in the parking, but this is just giving the people that are going to be there longer, not having to move the vehicle. And if we're not just like you said,
Yeah.
so I'm wondering if 3 hours.
3-hour parking on the west side of Fifth Avenue between King and Queen.
That is correct.
Stefan, do you have any reaction to it? 3-hour parking. No, I've been 3, it's not true.
Yeah. I like that idea, yeah, the 3-hour parking.
I think Scott would recommend then that we move all of the downtown parking to
I
3 hours.
wonder about, yeah, that's.
That would be much, much easier to administer.
Yeah.
The library would be happy with that. Like I said, most of our events, if they do go longer, that just, the parents aren't thinking, oh, I have to get my license plate, because who remembers their license plate? A lot of people do, but then some people, you go to the hotel and you're like, oh man, flipping my mind.
Yeah.
So that kind of also eliminates extra work on the bylaw being like, oh no, not that car. You have to pass that car.
Yeah.
So I think the 3-hour limit, and that's also for our staff for the later hours, if they want to come back. Generally, they're working from after that time. So
Well, the 3 hours for the arena is almost enough time for a hockey game as well, and with latitude, it would. So we would get away from the special events to get away from license numbers and whatever, so 3 hour parking.
Yeah.
And then with latitude, you've already described the staff would display the.
Would there be like a review process? Because I could see 3 hours. If you work 9 to 12 and go for lunch, that employee could park there. Because all employees leave at 3 now. So,
It's anybody can
yeah,
park. Yeah.
so but if there's not, like, if it hurts the traffic flow of the businesses on the business part of Front Street. You know, so maybe if we review it any year, like I know it will work wonderful for the arena and for the places, you know, that are doing events, but will it work wonderful for stores?
Yeah.
So maybe do a review.
Yeah, we actually plan to do a review at a couple of intervals, probably first after 6 months and then after a year. Because there are a few new changes, and so we anticipate that there may be some things that will need to be tweaked. So absolutely.
Councilor Timpson.
You know, I think some of these issues can be.
Thank you.
I'm gonna leave. I think some of the issues could be resolved if the 3 hour, 2 hour parking ended at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, because the times when people are going to want to be there at 4 hours are going to be after in the evening and on weekends. And I think that would, I just don't see any point in having till midnight or 1 o'clock, unless, of course, in the winter time, it'd be snow plowing, but for the rest of the year, I think.
What about
Doesn't make any sense.
say between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m.?
Sure. If that's.
I thought that wouldn't, the signage would be quite simple, but. Wait, is that? In the zone where we have the 3 hour parking, it is 3 hours between 6 a.m., 6 p.m., and then it's whatever the what is the parking rule after that?
Sorry.
Okay.
Wait.
It's free for all,
Okay.
except.
Councilor Van, do you have a question?
Mary?
Before I have an aneurysm.
Yeah.
Through Mayor Lawrence, our winter parking restriction starts at 7, goes to 7. So if you started 3,
Make it whatever is appropriate.
clarify.
What we will do is it'll be the same rules will apply, but the winter parking restrictions are the exemption. And so that's where because we're good.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I throw 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. You can make it 7 a.m. to whatever it is.
No,
For 2 hours?
isn't that how,
Is it
3 hours?
correct?
Right? Isn't that how, like you go to a city, like you go to Thunder Bay, and at a certain time, I think it's 5 o'clock, all the parking restrictions are lifted. Like, I think that's a common
varies.
practice.
Yes,
Yeah,
some states do
it's a
it.
common practice.
So
Yeah, and the reason is to turn over, you know, it's to protect those parking spots for retail, that people are coming and going. That's the purpose of it. And in the evening, like Drew said, that issue doesn't exist once the store's closed.
All I can tell you is I got a $300 and some parking ticket in Thunder Bay. I was excited. I was going for lunch with my daughter, and then there's a parking meter there. I put the loonie in went into the little restaurant, came out 45 minutes later, and there's a parking ticket. I didn't notice that the parking meter was blue. It was there was some latitude, as I think we have in our fines. I phoned the city and said, look, they said they saw me on video, and I said, well, you saw me put the money in. Wasn't really malintent, but they reduced it by 50% or something. But yeah, it's strict stuff.
And so somebody could park overnight on the street if they need it, correct?
except for the winter.
Except for the winter,
Yes.
Anything else on package 3? Do you feel you have enough? I think you could kind of simplify it at the end, I hope.
I think
Thank you for.
So there was some confusion. Did we go with 2 hour parking and then in the evening, go back 3 hours and then?
3 hours from 6 a.m., 6 p.m. or 7 a.m., 7 p.m., whichever we figure out.
All right,
Very good. Okay.
this is a lot of fun.
Pick me.
Okay. This is very interesting. Can I help you?
You'd be the ghost.
That is.
It's ice.
Yeah.
Is this Monday to Friday only, as in most places, and then you park on the weekend? Free?
It's free parking.
Is that another change that council wishes to make?
What is a proposal 7 days a week? Is that?
That's what it is then.
I think it should be 5 days a week.
Or six because of Saturday shopping.
Yeah, but yeah, Saturday shopping, yeah.
Not much.
I think you're complicating things. I think
Yeah.
7 days a week.
I think we should do 7 days a week because of the agencies.
Yeah.
They're not, our agencies are not 9 to 5, 5 days a week.
Yeah,
They're 24 hour, like the type of businesses that run in our downtown core are 24 hours a day for 7 days
It's
a week.
only, I mean, big cities don't punish you for parking on weekends. You don't pay on weekends in most big cities, and we're a small.
On Saturday. Yes,
yeah.
Saturday you do. Anytime stores are open, you pay.
We have so few stores on
Yeah.
Spring Street, are going to be people have been shopping in it. Does not make any sense. I think it should be 5 days a week. Then.
I'm a 7, but
Seven.
7, yeah.
Okay, the next proposal or package, pardon me, is the Lakeshore Drive Farlinger corridor. Staff recommends that council approve 3 linked measures together, reduce the speed limit from 50 kilometers per hour to 30 kilometers per hour.
Is this the right?
I don't think you're on the right slide.
Sorry.
Oh,
I was like,
sorry.
I think you went one too many.
There it is. Sorry, thank you. Yeah, staff recommends that council approve 3 linked measures, reducing the speed limit from 50 to 30 from the Wellington Street turnoff at Farlinger Park. Add a yield to oncoming traffic signs near 38 and 50 Lakeshore, so basically at the bottom of the hill and the top of the hill. And clarify that beach event no parking is clear so that people aren't parking in that grassy area.
Residential section.
Yeah, the residential area. Public feedback supported the lowered speed limits, pointed to the difficulty of meeting oncoming traffic in the narrow section, and asked for clear direction, around the parking in the residential area just beyond the Farlinger Park. So we think that this all fits together nicely. The feedback was positive that we received. So I'll turn it over to council.
council comments, Councillor Simpson.
Yeah, so if there's no parking on the extension of the beach there to the grass and then around, where are people going to be parking? They're going to be across the road at the CN? Hello?
I can't suggest that people park on private property, but we all know that they do.
You then have an issue of risk crossing Wellington. It's pretty busy and
So we have had multiple complaints from the residents that live in that area that every time there's an event at the beach, they can't leave their homes because people are blocking their driveways, parking double and triple. It's a significant issue for the homeowners there.
But those are offenses. You don't park in front of somebody's driveway and you don't double park. Why not single parking?
Because it's extremely narrow. As you know, Lakeshore is a very narrow road to begin with. And it creates additional congestion there, which is very unsafe.
But could you have it just on that grassy part that's beside the road?
Our recommendation is no parking in that area.
Councillor Johnson.
I think that's
I
fine.
definitely agree with that because people actually at the farmer's market park in your driveway. They park they block your driveway, they park in your driveway.
Mhm.
And I know there has been some events where they put the barrier up and say, sure, local parking. Traffic only for residential parking only for the people who live there. And otherwise, like I have gone there to try to mow my lawn during an event and I can't even get in my driveway to unload my lawnmower because people are parking there. So you say that we could ticket them all, but I think it's easier just to say you can't, and it's so narrow that like if an ambulance or a fire truck had to get down there, they would not be able to. Yeah,
I guess the question is then, where are people gonna park when there's a big event? Then there's not gonna come.
well, we have a parking lot 1 block from there.
Yeah.
It's across the street from, but it's ways, but still, like if you go to the the city, you walk that far.
Yep, and I would suggest that, I mean, for what could actually potentially fit in the minor area, you'd be looking at 2 or 3 vehicles only. So, and that's part of the issue is that we get 10 or 12 crammed in there when only 2 or 3 could reasonably fit to, but still allow for egress and safe passage for the other motorists and the walking public.
And to the question before, will people park, there's ample parking that's within a few hundred meters, and I know that the argument comes, well, we're a small town, you should be able, I'm sorry, we're a small town, but sometimes we have big events, and sometimes you have to walk a little bit, and I just compare that, as Councillor Costco said, Thunder Bay is not a huge city, but it's a city, and you can park and walk 300-400 meters to get to the event. That's just the nature of it, especially when you're having events in park areas where the parking is limited by nature, and it can be far away from where the event is.
When Thunder Bay runs their fireworks down at the beach or at the waterfront, you can't even enter the property with a vehicle. You have to walk onto the property. So the entire acreage has 0 parking and it's walking only. And, people do it. They either choose to do it or not, right? But we have that, those are the big events, the music festival, some of the farmers markets and the fireworks for sure. Those are the big events.
In the Blueberry
Yeah,
Festival.
the Blueberry Festival.
Birthday.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love to see people walking all the
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
but let's be honest, they're not going to. It will affect the attendance at these. It'd be great if they would park up in Front Street and walk down, but they're just not going to, I don't think.
People do it all.
And I think they're doing it already. I see people walking under the underpass having parked up above. I disagree that people will attend. Councillor Andre.
This, right now, so then who owns that grassy area? Is that town property, kind of? Yeah, exactly, okay.
So that you're restricting it on that grassy area too?
When normally,
That's the year we're talking.
Yeah, but
Lakeshore Drive.
yeah, but. Or I thought we were talking about, the road down, the resident down where all the houses are and.
It's the grassy area and all that entire stretch
Right.
is what we've had complaints from residents.
Yeah.
Yes.
But they're not parking in front of their driveways there, they're just parking across the road.
The issue is that it creates a lot of congestion because too many people park there. And then also what happens is someone will back in, someone else will pull in front of them and they can't get out. It creates no end of complaints, of problems. It's just, there's just not enough room there.
I've never laid a complaint, but I do live down there.
yeah,
And I can tell you that during big events, it can be very problematic accessing Lakeshore, getting off Wellington safely, making that U-turn essentially and navigating that because of the parking that's there.
Well, then regulate it, I mean, we don't have somebody there. Police.
I think we can't forget too, that there are over 24 parking spots at the beach, in the parking lot at the beach, like.
Yeah.
So those still exist.
Of course, but that's
I think
not-
it's important not
It's
to
not private.
make it sound like there's no parking at the beach. There is parking at the beach.
But if you've got 400 or 500 people coming to an event like the Renaissance Fair.
So allowing 3 more vehicles to park there is going, I just don't understand how that's going to resolve any issue. 3 or 4 vehicles could safely at max park there.
Well, in the grassy area, there's a good 10, 12.
And people, yeah.
Hey,
Yeah, the other thing, I think there was one event where you did have a town employee down there.
Yes, we did.
And I don't think we should be paying town employees to police 3 parking spaces because people don't park responsibly in a neighborhood. So it's cost prohibitive. So we have to just say, put up a barrier and say that this is for residents only.
Mhm.
You know, the people who live on that street can barely back out of their driveways and maneuver around, never mind if you add parking to this situation.
Mhm.
Also, we read it.
And there's two accessible parking spots up, like at the town beach, right? There's two or three.
I don't have that in front of me.
I know that there's at least two parking.
There are accessible
Yeah.
spots there. Yes.
When I'm just like,
Anything further, council? None.
Then-
Councilor Timpson.
Okay, maybe we have to then get permission, formal permission from CN to park where they park.
I would suggest we cross that bridge when we have to.
And gets to us.
I think if you do that, you have the possibility of saying no.
Yeah.
Right now, what we're doing is cool. Sometimes when you bring something up like that, it gets shut down.
Mhm.
And
They would probably be forced into a position where for liability reasons, they would say no. If they do it with,
Just do it.
just do it, I think in the bedroom.
Mhm.
Until such time as.
Yeah.
Rather, the public, is there any member of the public that wish to speak to package 4?
Yes, okay, that's me. Say something. Okay, and I've got. That, and I apologize for my outburst previously. I'm very emotional about the senior center. Listening to the discussions here has been very enlightening for me. I understand some of the issues, and what I'd like to do is challenge you all to come to a solution that will benefit the seniors, plus the other business, plus the fire department. And a couple of things that came to my mind. One was the the almost accident you had. I'm very regretful that that happened there. I noticed that for even myself and other people, we don't always stop. We don't always stay within the parameters of the handicap parking. I know sometimes the vehicles are past, maybe half the vehicle, 3/4 of the vehicle is only on the, maybe only a part of the vehicle is on the handicap sign. And that needs to be corrected. I think that the incident you mentioned probably would not have happened if that vehicle hadn't been encroaching off the handicap parking zone. The other thing is the loading and the unloading for the business next door. Now that 10 years ago, we didn't have that problem, but we have that problem now. And perhaps we should, this is Canada, we should get along. We should figure out how to ameliorate that issue. And speaking for myself, it would be better for me at the center for that issue to be ameliorated rather than making it a bad through. So maybe we could know when he's having a delivery, maybe then we wouldn't use the handicap parking zone. You know, we could work together on that. And I think that would be more conducive to living together and being Canadians. Thank you.
Let's call for package 4.
This is me personally, Nicole Ryder speaking. I would suggest for any of the big events, you guys advertise parking, because just where you can park, because then that's giving access, people information for coming to the fireworks. Park up top and walk down if you can. And then you're freeing up the spots for those that can't, would be my,
Mhm.
just part of educating the public, like you should be thinking about this everywhere, every time people go to events, like I know I do. It's like, well, I can park a little further away. I don't mind walking. So I think it's just going to be a continual educating the public and making sure the residents aren't being affected. And that's for all this parking, like all the issues, kind of just educating people. And it might be something they should know, but they might not know. So just giving them options, like, or potentially you could carpool with someone that day. Just kind of like giving them ideas at the time of the event, just to try and kind of alleviate some of the issues coming up later. Would just be my personal suggestion.
All right, thanks. I have seen in larger centers, other centers, I'm not sure where, and I will give it, say, a sign could be at the town beach parking lot that showed with a map, parking. Of course, if you're there, and no, you could be driving through looking for a spot, showing the parking is available at, municipal parking is available at across the coast, and, showing the other sites that are close is, I've seen that in places where, but the idea of even when you're advertising events and it could be advice to the people who are running the events too, to say parking is limited, on site, but parking is available at these other sites. So good idea. Anything further to council on package 4? Councillor Timpson.
Well, it's not package 4, but it was a proposal similar to something in package 4, and the West Point Cove Road, the recommendation that the entire West Point Cove Road be left at 40 miles per hour because of the large boats or trucks and boats that go up and down there, and it's a wavy S-shaped road, and there are plenty of bikers and walkers and dog walkers on that road. I would like to see seriously concerned attention paid to keeping that all 40 after the school, all the way down to the boat launch. That was turned down in the report, but that it would be raised in the parking review later on. I would hope that there will not be a serious accident there before this review is taken.
Staff, as I recall, it's 40 kilometers from perhaps
School.
Prince Street, by the school, by the cemetery to West Point Cove Road or
To
To the
to
entrance.
West Point Cove.
the end of Eighth
On the end along Eighth Avenue.
begins at.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So the 40, I think the 40 kilometers goes beyond the school. So the school property
Yes.
is beyond 8th Avenue.
Sorry.
Yes. And I think the first 40 kilometers just perhaps as you leave Cedar Bay.
Yeah, the 50 is right as you leave Cedar Bay.
At 50 from there to the village. So we have 40 on.
Yeah, it's 40 all the way from Prince Street up to just past Cedar Bay. And then it changes to 50.
Staff, any comments?
We have our recommendation that we will look at it as part of the review,
I
but
think, yeah, that's in the report, yeah.
What does that mean, like this, as part of the review? Does that
in
mean
6 months or
in 6 months? So why would you not do it now? Like why would it be a part of it?
because we believe 50 kilometers is fine for that portion of that road.
Which you're going to review it. Now there's been suggested you will review it and see what the merit is and come back with a recommendation, which may be the same. You're recommending 50 and council can decide based on the merits that you bring forward or not. All right, so here we are at the end of package 4.
Yes.
And I don't believe there were some suggestions for enhancements and whatever, but in terms of the particular recommendations here, there was no changes. Right, council? I think the consensus I saw was,
Okay, very good.
so back to you.
Thank you, Mary Lance. So the just need to. Yeah.
All right, remember Appendix B and the consent block?
Yes. So we'll leave this here for a moment.
H3 in the deck.
Right. There we go. Oh, changed it on this screen, but not on this one, unfortunately. There we go. There we go. So these are some of the smaller changes in terms of not a lot of feedback on. So this includes the change in the bylaw from the January version to this version to provide the authority to private parking lot owners to enforce parking on their own properties. So we created that. The addition of the accessible parking space, which was discussed in one of the other packages at 88 to 88 and a half front. The proposal to remove the stop sign north and southbound on 7th at Prince. We had talked about event parking at Farlinger in the previous package. The pedestrian crossover traffic light requests. We have the one that we are looking into, but everything else will be part of the review. There were some comments, requests regard to a broader speed reduction throughout the municipality. So this will be something that we'll look at as part of the assessment. We will be taking advantage of a service that's offered by our insurance company this summer to have them come in and assess certain specific areas. West Point Cove is one of the ones that we're looking at with respect to speed. So that will be part of that review when they come in. Overnight parking in recreation facility lots, we had talked about that. King Street and Tikanagan South Side, no parking, so keeping that restriction. So that's just sort of a summary of those smaller items that we didn't get a lot of feedback on.
Councillor Thompson.
What exactly happened with the hospital parking? So were we involved before?
So yeah, we were. And then in the version that we brought forward in January, we essentially were saying we weren't going to be. And now we've put it in to say basically we have written the bylaw in such a way that private parking lot owners can enforce their own regulations on their private parking lots.
So we went into the hospital private parking lot and we would give ticket?
No. The previous iteration of the bylaw had it that we were actually licensing their security staff to ticket on our behalf, and it was very complicated and convoluted, frankly.
So then we would collect the money and then we would give it to them, or how did that work?
We would collect the money and keep it. But there wasn't, there were a lot of challenges, staff turnover on their side, so on and so forth. And so there were some challenges with it being a Provincial Offences Act and some stuff that did have to go to court, and then we would have to go to court because their staff wouldn't, and what. So it makes more sense to still give them that authority, but not have it specifically provided for in our bylaw, just that they have the authority to enforce it on their own property.
So then, are we still collecting the money?
Yeah.
So
That would be all on
they
whatever,
collect the money and they keep the revenue?
whatever they can.
Okay.
Councillor Wonder.
I just have three questions. The first one is, sorry, I don't understand the Farlinger Town Beach event parking wording. Clarify that beach event, no parking applies only when signed in the affected area.
So this is what we talked about in the last section about not allowing that parking in that.
Oh,
Grass
in the
area.
grass. Okay, sorry, I thought this was something different. So,
Yeah.
second question is, whatever happened with the crosswalk by the Hugh Allen Clinic on Fifth Avenue, just up the hill? We still have those metal holes in the ground, but you can tell that it was supposed to be a crosswalk there. Whatever happened with that? Maybe
It was never, council of the day when it was installed, never didn't want it to be completed.
Does it have lines? Like,
No, this is the one that actually has like posts for the
Yeah.
overhead.
Yeah.
does it at least have lines? So it's not a crossover, a crosswalk?
I haven't seen it. I mean, I haven't seen it since, well, I'll have to look, but
Can we bring that back? Because I would like to, if we're like, if it's already in the ground, like all the pipes and everything, and we just have to add like the actual X and everything.
like,
Why not? If it's already halfway done, might as well.
yeah, so we would have to do an assessment because that would have been put in quite some time ago,
Oh, quite some time ago. Okay.
The clinic was built.
more than 20 years ago, because I've been here 20 years and it's been here as long as I've been here. So
Okay.
I would suspect that it could we may need to reinstall those things, given that they've been exposed to the elements without being completed for
Can we just-
decades.
Take it down then, if it's not being used much, just take it down.
Put it in the new one. Just that I'm frustrated. Where's that? Where is it?
So Councilor Brand, you had 3 questions?
You had 3?
Yeah, and the third one was, well, not just a comment. I do think that we need a stoplight at the Tim Hortons, but I know I've said that many times and I'm that's still on the record. That's I think we do need a stoplight at that intersection.
When you say stoplight, do you mean traffic lights?
Yeah, a traffic light.
I think that's based on traffic count. Can you do that?
Yes, we do a traffic study every 2 years.
Have you-
On that intersection.
And as I understand it, and you can help me, it's the MTO, do they have any say in whether we put traffic lights in or not, or
No,
it's provincial?
I mean, it's regulated in terms of how they have to be installed and whatnot, but where they get installed is a municipal decision based on best practices and guidance. So that intersection is wired, if you will, for traffic lights. But the primary issue is that traffic lights still won't prevent people turning right on red. And that's what the biggest issue is, or had been at that intersection. So if that's what we're trying to solve, traffic lights aren't going to solve that.
Mhm.
But the infrastructure is underground. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's, back to you. Councilor.
Yeah, just one question on the Tim Hortons. What happened to that issue that when you met with the Tim Hortons manager when they're exiting and onto Edith Ethel Street, or is that Fifth?
Yeah. Fifth
Yeah.
Avenue, yep.
Yeah. You're going to try and put a stop sign there.
Yes, we had offered, we had requested that they allow us to put a stop sign there, but they didn't.
Okay.
And we can't do it because it's private property.
Correct.
Okay. Now, are we getting ready to vote, or I just have one more thing? Like, is there any way we can, like in our directions to staff, are we going to look at the Charlie's loading zone situation? Can we look into that?
Yeah, in terms of investigating, yeah.
Yeah, and see what solutions we can come up with, because I just don't, like, I think, like Mrs. Ayotte has said, I think we have to come up with some solution here to work together. We have to, where the fire department is happy, the seniors are happy, and Charlie's are not, are loading somewhere that's good for everybody. Yeah, so we need to come up with some kind of solution around this that I don't know what it is, but.
And for those, it's an ideal to make everybody happy, but the reality is we can't.
Yes, I do realize that.
We're going from here stuff.
Um. Let's check.
Okay.
So the last items this evening are just related to the giving third and final reading, approving set fines, and authorizing the submission of the set fines. So if council has any, so after tonight, we would begin the process, we would order the signs, and begin the process to prepare for that for the spring. Finalize and launch the public education campaign in April. And we anticipate that by approximately mid-May, the said fines would be approved. But during the next couple of months, the idea would be that there would be no direct enforcement, just warnings issued and the public education until the set fines are approved.
And as I read the report, these set fines are pretty standard.
Yeah, certainly the $300 ones. That's
I recognize that one from
Yep.
the
And then we've sort of structured it as, you know, 150 for the more serious offenses aside from accessible parking misuse, which is the $300 fine. $100 for other offenses, 75 with early voluntary payment where permitted, and then 75 with $50 early voluntary payment where permitted, and then 40 with $30 early voluntary payment where permitted.
Councilor Van Bryn.
Sorry, what would entail a serious bylaw as opposed to just an other offense? Like what's the red line?
So just looking at the set fine schedule, things like abandon a vehicle on the highway, store a vehicle on the highway, those are $30. You know, with yearly payment. Stop on a fire route, that's $150.
On a which?
Fire route. Stop in front of or within 3 meters of or obstruct the use of a driveway or laneway, $75. Some other examples. Park in a manner to obstruct or interfere with traffic, $100. So these are just some examples. They're all listed in the set fine schedule.
Council, Councilor Gibson.
Yeah, 13.2, I wonder if you could clarify again, it says in accordance with section 432 of the Municipal Act, early voluntary payment for offenses under part 1 of the Provincial Offences Act is not allowed. And how does that connect with that?
So primarily, I'm very surprised that you shared what you did with Thunder Bay because they're legally not allowed to give a discount on the accessible thing. Very difficult to answer that question, but that's that's essentially certain things like the accessible fines. You can't allow. They don't allow for voluntary payment.
So that covered in section 432. Okay, but that nothing to do with, you know.
Just what fines you can have an early
And that's
voluntary payment.
accessible.
I think accessible is the primary one, Mary, or I think some of the others.
There's through you, Mayor Lawrence. I have to remember. You can only do the early voluntary payment for parking fines, parking, standing, or stopping fines, or certain animal control fines. Under those, so part 1 of the Provincial Offences Act, sorry, I'll go backwards. Part 2 of the Provincial Offences Act deals with parking offenses, parking, standing, and stopping offenses. Part 1 of the Provincial Offences Act deals with other offenses. And for part 1 and part 2 fines, or offenses, you can establish set fines like we've done here. Part 3 of the Provincial Offences Act allows you don't have set fines for those offenses, but in those cases, if you charge someone under Part 3, then you have to do what's called lay-in information, and that goes to court. There's a lot of paperwork involved, and that offense actually goes to court to be settled. And I'm not 100% familiar with the Provincial Offences Act, but I believe that even if you've got set fines for a certain offense, if that's not providing a deterrent and an individual is still breaking the law in that respect, then you can lay in information. I believe the fines are increased. So it's a different process. And I don't know, for some reason, there must be a reason why certain Part 1 offenses, you can't do early voluntary payments. It's legislation that way.
Thank you. Any council? Is there anybody in the public who wish to speak to the set fines package? Seeing no one, will just say in my defense that I called on that $300 fine because I'm sure the last ticket I had, parking ticket before that, was probably a $5 ticket on a 25-cent parking fine, 40 years ago. So $300 just take, and when I saw it here, I thought, oh man, that's the standard these days. So it's okay.
Okay.
So that concludes our presentation this evening. Thank you very much, council, for your engagement, for all your feedback. It was really helpful. Thank you to members of the public who attended and provided feedback. Very useful as well. So thank you. And I'll turn things back over to you, Mayor Lutz.
So we do have a motion on the floor, and there's been direction given to staff that would alter some of the things in here. Is council comfortable that they know what those directions were?
Now, what happens to the ones that you're investigating in terms of solutions? How does that play out?
So we will, Chief Mayor Lawrence, those things that we're investigating will be things that will come forward as an amendment to the bylaw.
You talked about a review. Can you just explain?
Yes, so the intent is to work with the bylaw for a number of months, at least 6, to see what's working well and what's not. And if there, when you develop a regulatory bylaw of this complexity, there's bound to be a few hiccups along the way. So in 6 months' time, we correct any of those hiccups that we discover that's shared with us by our enforcement staff and others, by the OPP, and also during that window, we hope to avail ourselves of that service from our insurance company, where they can assess certain aspects in certain situations in town, and then we would come back to council with any amendments to the bylaw. But recognizing that some of these things that we were asked to provide direction on may need to be dealt with before 6 months. So,
and some of the bylaw comes into effect when?
Upon approval of the set fines by the Ministry of the Attorney General. So probably around mid-May.
And so really the changes, some of the other changes that don't require, or does it all require that to be in place before the changes start happening?
I mean,
Say 3-hour parking in the downtown, for example.
yes, nothing that was decided tonight will come into effect until at least mid-May.
Okay, so then would the 6 months review would be 6 months from implementation in May or June, which will actually put it into
The next instance.
the next council bylaw. Which I might suggest, and I'm not trying to overload staff with work, but a 6 month review and then a 12-month review, so that, because the new council, if you do 6 months, they'll just be in. Just a thought. And it would also give you full seasons, that's 2 of implementation.
And that's the other thing. If there aren't urgent issues that need to be addressed at the 6 month mark, we'd probably just wait for the 1 year mark. But we do know that there are some things that we've been given direction to investigate further that will need to be addressed before the 6-month mark. So we will proceed accordingly.
Hopefully, in an ideal world, you'd be able to investigate those before the March 31st, when you think everything's gonna come into place. Is that possible?
Sorry, March 31st.
No, May 31st.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so,
That's what's wrong.
I don't know. It's on me.
From the line.
Yeah, absolutely. We would
Okay.
want to try to resolve
Yeah. Okay.
some of those issues at that time, for sure.
Anything further, council? The motion is on the table and the motion, does it need to, so what's just being discussed, for example, the direction to staff, the review in 6 months, et cetera, that's part of the direction to staff? Is that considered as part of the
Yes.
the bylaw package? Council, may I call the vote? Seeing no objections, I will call the vote on the bylaw that was put on the table with a mover and a seconder, and staff could receive direction, which is all noted. All in favor? Carried. We have a bylaw number 01-26, being a bylaw to regulate traffic and parking within the municipality of Sioux. That bylaw number 01-26 be read a third time and passed, which is essentially what we just did, wasn't it?
The motion authorized the passing, but then we need to pass a motion to actually.
Moved by Councilor Van Breda, seconded by Councilor Timpson. All in favor? Carried. And confirmatory bylaw number 21-26, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council of the municipality of Sioux, March 25th, 2026. Special council meeting be read a first, second, and third time and passed. Moved by Councilor Cosco, seconded by Councilor Van Breda. Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, council. Thank you, public. Thank you, everybody. For the winter weather.
Thanks.